hit the button and try to catch the beginning stuff because there's some gems in there. But sometimes it gets inappropriate too.
Statute of limitations.
You keep inviting me. It's your fault if it gets inappropriate early.
Voice, bro. It keeps you coming back.
Yeah, I should say the first time I think I ever met Will when he was on patrol, he was like getting a feel for what North Idaho policing was like.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, being all professional, super quiet, which for him is really difficult.
It is, yes.
So he's phase 1 FTO as a lateral, and I'm the sergeant. I think I was a brand new sergeant, and we're back there. We were behind Adam and Eve. Now get this.
I can't believe you're going to tell the story.
100% I'm going to tell the story. Behind Adam and Eve because somebody is back there dumpster diving for used dildos. If you want to personify rock bottom and you're dumpster diving for used dildos, that's a thing, okay?
Eric's coming in hot on this episode.
That's where I got the puka shells.
I just like to set the tone right here. So he's back there. So I stop out with it. I find it. So new guy shows up. He's like diving right in, going to search the car because we have plain smell, which is the thing in Idaho, by the way.
Diving into the car. Make sure you clarify that.
Yes, diving in the car. So we get up to the front and I kind of figure out what she was doing, which was dumpster diving for used dildos. And he's in the back searching studiously like a good phase 1 trainee. And while he's back there doing it, all of a sudden, he gets struck in the chest with this big, gigantic, triumphant one that I lobbed from the front seat.
No.
Oh, yeah. Hit him. And he just, this realization that just happened.
Well, I knew we were cool. You know what I mean? I knew
Yeah.
all right, now we can play. So, he's a new guy, especially from a big agency. You know what I mean? You want to make sure you're not trying to act like a big timer.
No.
Just be humble and learn. And honestly, I was humbled when I got here. I thought I knew a lot more, you know what I mean, than I did, but it's just easier to find down there. So having to really learn policy, procedure, case law.
Oh, yeah.
I knew 2 of them when I got here. You know what I mean? And now I know McGregor v. Jones and all kinds of other random ass.
I'm pretty sure those are UFC fighters, but hey, dude, whatever.
So, Will came from LAPD, the big department down south. How many years did you have on down there before you came up here?
About 8.5.
That's a pretty good amount.
Yeah, it was a good chunk.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I learned a lot of great friends. I was in some hellacious calls. You know what I mean? I got to see a lot. I learned a lot. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Just at a time where after the riots, COVID.
You're talking about George Floyd?
Don't know what you're talking about, but
I mean the George Floyd riots.
Yeah. Or the old timers used to call it the tantrum. They didn't think those were real riots because they were around for
the Rodney King. I worked with some dudes. I worked with dudes that worked that too. Chippies. Like how impressed were you with CHP SRT down there clearing freeways during the riots, dude?
I mean, it helped because honestly, it was so chaotic because people were overflowing off the sides of the freeway. Yeah. Like it was absolute anarchy, man. So honestly, every extra body we had, including the CHP guys, it was a big deal.
You act like CHP is not tip of the spear. Is the vibe I'm getting here? I'm just saying.
My brother-in-law is a chippy, and he's been in one use of force in 25 years. So that's
that's impressive.
I'm proud of him, actually.
Maybe he's a really good talker.
Yeah. He got a house up here. He's retiring in December. So
sweet.
He did it the right way.
Yeah, smart move.
Well, I think Seth electively uses force 3 times a week.
I do.
Actually trains 3 times a week.
On himself.
It's a job. I mean, like a handful. It's crazy. But I dealt with drunk people for the most part. And like, there's an art to it where we're having a good time until the cuffs goes on. And then we're halfway to jail and they're like, hey, man, like, then they might get lippy. But like, it's a skill for sure of like being able to talk people into cuffs and do that whole thing. So I got in a lot of fights as a bouncer. I did that for a long time, but when I became a cop, it was like it was almost like, oh, come on, man.
He's definitely the talker. I'm more the blunt force object. I really don't.
It's the haircut.
The thing is, you know how to handle yourself, and so do you. So I don't think a lot of people want to test. I've noticed that. Like a lot of those guys that probably train and are prepared for that sort of an interaction, they don't end up using a lot of force because you kind of have that. They call it, it's presence, right?
Yeah.
Where somebody looks at it and says, maybe this isn't the one, but you'll see other cops. We joke about it and say they have very punchable faces. Everybody's got cops on their department that has a very punchable face.
If I turn my face sideways to the screen, people can see I have the face of a bulldog. And it's like, I used to have a really nice nose.
Yes.
Used to.
And they got smacked a couple times, but
it happens.
Yeah. Those are the guys that don't get into a lot of uses of force. They're just the ones that nobody really wants to mess with. They just have a presence about them. Like they know what's up.
I think that was the weird part about Skid Row though, is everyone was so high. And I know you guys were talking about on a previous podcast where these people are just dead inside.
Yep.
It was just the mass concentration of everyone who was dead inside. So to me, and the LAPD people listening, I'm not comparing Central to Southeast 77th, Newton, anything like that. But in my opinion, the unpredictability of transients who are high as a kite, to me was always scarier than a gangster who someone that's trying to jump in, those pre-fight indicators, like you're saying, with our experience, you kind of know, like, all right, this young gangster who I know is trying to be on the up and up, he's, probably going to start some shit, but I know, geez, like, I've dealt with this old guy before. Right. He's not going to do shit. But the guy who's just turning the corner and just doing this, and walking towards you, you know what I mean? It was.
I clearly remember my first experience with somebody that was like not there, and it was terrifying because I wasn't used to the unpredictability of that. They're like a wild animal, maybe worse because you can actually predict a wild animal. It was like it was a call of like a pet on a bridge, and people thought she was going to jump, and I showed up, and I was like a brand new cop, middle of nowhere in Humboldt County, and I walk up and like she looks normal. And then flipped a switch and became like some kind of hyena and
feral.
I was like, what
do
I do with this?
It wasn't uncommon to be on a call and then see someone hit someone with a Lime scooter 12 feet away and another dude's running with a machete and he's the victim of a crime. Like it was, chaos. The most
completely normal down Skid Row.
Chaos. Yeah, man, it was.
That's a good point that you don't really think about it because it's not like as what you would think as dangerous or gang infested because each one of them has their fight or flight moment. Like once they respond to consequential stimulus, that's what we always talk about when we're like training. Like how are they going to respond to that consequential stimulus when they realize shit's about to hit the fan?
Yeah,
that's predictable, right? If you recognize it and you train to that. When you're talking about dead-eyed, deep, nothing left, that is completely unpredictable.
Like you're just one radio call away. Yeah. Like that was kind of what pushed it towards the end.
What's going to happen when I put my hands on you? Are you still going to be a zombie or are you going to turn into a wildcat?
Yeah. He knows, like when I first got here, anyone involved in any kind of felony, everybody in cuffs.
Yeah.
I don't care how many black eyes you have, everyone's in cuffs and we figured out. So I was with him when I was still newer. And I think it might have been a burglary, possible suspect or something. Yeah. And he comes out of the hotel room immediately, turn around, cuff. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing?
What do you mean? Yeah. What's wrong with you?
And it was the truth. It took me a long time to get used to talking to normal people. I mean, you saw that. It was just a completely different animal, but in the best way. Yeah. But it was definitely hard. Like, hey man, turn around. Okay. I don't know what to do next. You know what I mean? I almost felt like a rookie. He was listening to me. But
what made you make the move up here? Why?
There was a zillion reasons. Riots and the COVID, what's the word I want to say?
First of all, I love riots, by the way.
Like, I love the overtime.
Like that poster on the wall. That's not me, but it is me.
That is cool.
Yeah. Like, there's a little bit of you guys can't see the poster. It's a riot cop with a shield and this little kid painting a picture on it. It's rad.
That is cool.
Yeah.
The drama with the COVID shot shenanigans and how strict they were on the masks and everything. When my buddies, they know who they are, they got in a good shooting. And they got investigated because they didn't have their masks on.
No.
And I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure 2 bullets to the chest would kill you a lot faster than COVID.
Right.
Would. You know what I mean? So, but
dude.
And then they were so hard on it. And then you're shoving 8 of us in a 6-person van for 22 days, 19 hours a day. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm watching upper command staff take knees and while my buddies are getting hit with air conditioning units and guys who are still blinded by those lasers to this day.
Dude,
it was, that was a crazy thing. But
we went
honestly,
through that too.
I was almost at my 10-year mark. So when you hit 10 years, you get your short vacation as well as your long vacation that you've always had. You get your longevity pay bump. And I was next on the list for Vice. And Vice and Central is pretty cool because it has the most ABC locations. Like, okay, Central has more ABC locations than all the rest of LAPD combined. And I was...
What's an ABC location?
So anything, alcohol beverage control?
Yeah. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so
that's fine.
All the prostitution, we had the underground gambling from Chinatown. There was training for poker and it was about to be pretty cool. And I waited a long time to get there, but I just hated it. And other old timers, and my big thing was listening to the old timers. I loved the wealth of knowledge and their experience because you couldn't fake it. And they did it at an era where it was probably the pinnacle of police work. The mid 90s stuff was just insane. So I really am a big believer in you're a product of your environment. And everything I hated about California and I bitched to my wife on the phone, none of it was going to change. And you just hit that point where you're like, am I just going to sit here and bitch all the time and be frustrated and angry, or can we actually do something to change it? So anyway, I'm talking about, hey man, I'm just trying to wait it out for Vice. There's always something else. There's always something else. It's almost like breaking up with someone like, oh, what's his birthday? Then it's Valentine's Day, right? Like, I don't know. I'm sitting with the guy who probably had 38 years on the job. In the Crown Vic, still the best police car of all time.
Thank you.
It's not close. It's not close at all. Best meals of my life on the back of a Crown Vic. But
thank you.
It's a search property. But anyway, I was talking about it with him, and I'm thinking about moving. And he's like, in my entire career, I've never seen it get this bad this fast. I know we talked about the pendulum before. Mm-hmm. I think that pendulum is broken in these big liberal cities. I do not think it's coming back, or if and when it does come back, I'm dead. And I'm like, man, I really want to go. And he's like, all right, forget the money, forget this, forget longevity, forget short. He's like, is it better for your son? And it got real quiet real fast in that Crown Vic. I'm like, yeah. And he puts his hands up like that. And so on the way home, that was it. We were lucky. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law already lived here, which made it easy for my wife. I know that's a big thing for people not coming up here is, hey, I don't want to leave family. So we had that. Luckily, and our kids are similar in age to their kids. So, But yeah. And then there was actually a time period where I was flying back and forth. So my grandmother lives like 25 minutes away from Central Division. And we were up here already. And I would go work 8 or 9 days in a row and then fly back. So because I knew no matter what, my family was out of there. Yep. And that was the biggest deal for me. But got a little nervous when Fauci's like, hey, you need the shot to fly. I was getting a little, you're going to have to quit now. But
so don't be driving.
Yeah.
Did people on your department give you shit for leaving?
No, a lot of them were super happy for me.
Really?
Especially the old timers. They were really like, and they were kind of like, I made FTO at a pretty early age. I was a super hard worker. Like I loved chasing bad guys. There's certain elements of police work, like community, other stuff, which is just as important. I'm not dissing it in any way. Definitely not my style. You know what I mean? I'm here to mess with bad guys. That's my forte. I love doing it. But it was kind of that realization of like, hey man, these good guys who are going to promote and lead the next generation, they don't want to do this anymore. And when they would say things like, well, when guys like you are gone, even if you stay, the type of officers that are now going to come out, because no one wants to do this job now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Forget how much you make. Like, how cool is your pension when you're in prison? Mm-hmm. When you get that radio call in the middle of Skid Row of like, hey, man, 415 man with a knife. Right. So out in the streets here, it'd be like, oh, okay, everyone's inside. You know what I mean? Hey, we'll deal with it from a distance. Right. Hey, reverse 911 call. Well, when there's 70 people on the foot within 12 feet of them, how do you handle that call? Right. So if you wait and he stabs someone, you could have stopped it. Right. Or you pull the trigger too early and now you murdered him and, he wasn't really going to do anything, and it's just, I didn't want my life and my family's future to be a radio call away.
Be outside of your hands.
Outside my hands, 100%.
Right. What, how different is it here?
It's night and day difference in the sense of the proactiveness that we get to do and is actually encouraged is so refreshing. It's so fun being a cop here. I definitely found my niche in chasing sex offenders. That's been my niche. I know his is obviously drugs and there's other guys like warrants and other things, but that's definitely my calling. But the community here absolutely loves us. I can't reiterate that enough. They're the most incredible citizens. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. And there really is no dollar amount I'd go back for. Yeah. It doesn't exist.
What do you think about, because some of the folks listening are cops in California. Mm-hmm. What do you think was the biggest adjustment for you and how hard was it?
I mean, for me, it was a little different because Skid Row, talking to normal people, was big, but a lot of the laws are so conservative, they're almost liberal. You know what I mean? So really knowing those case laws and knowing how you do stuff is actually a big deal. Because in Cali, we were talking about this earlier, 2 things California got right. 1, you could jam any parole or probationer no matter what.
Right.
1 thing they got right. Number 2, you could tow cars that were expired more than 6 months. That screwed up a lot of gang and criminal activity was taken with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
the way you said that's funny. It's almost so conservative. It's liberal.
Yes.
Idaho's I hate that constitutionalist has a negative connotation because we always like compare that with sovereign citizen stuff and some of that funky stuff. I'm a big fan of the Constitution. I'll protect and defend the Constitution, right? But Idaho is a very constitutionalist state in that it is very restrictive on what you can stop people for. I've noticed that with California cops, that can be an adjustment because any equipment violation or anything, one single brake light that's out, that's cause for a traffic stop. Here, nah, it's different. California, it seems easier to get them. Like there's more reasons to intervene on certain things. Or what do you guys call it? The 501 or 505, whatever that, under the influence.
502, right?
502, whatever.
No.
It's like a community caretaking function where they're under the influence of drugs.
Wow. 150?
The 5150.
Yeah. No, 502 is when you take their property from being. So if they have a knife or something, that's the code. But anyway, go ahead.
But the 5150, you could look through, I had a Cali cop explain it to me, it was on a ride along. You could look through the window of a hotel and see that somebody was under the influence and 5150 them. Idaho's not like that, right? No. Under the influence in public's the thing, but as you guys learned, and we testify more here, you go to court more often, so you got to know your shit.
We had court a lot last week.
Yeah. Yes, we did. As a matter of fact. This summer, too.
Or even like asking people on probation for consent to search them. Like that was, you know what I mean? Like, turn around, dude. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. Yeah. Easily the best decision of my life.
And you took a pay cut, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it took a pretty substantial pay cut. My wife and I both, she's been a pediatric nurse for 15 years.
Perpetuating the stereotype, bro.
Yeah, hey, man, works out. It was fun when we were younger without our kids because we both worked 312. So we would just work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then go to Vegas Monday through Wednesday, recover Thursday. Yeah, dude, there was good times. But yeah, it was a pretty substantial pay cut. But I'm very big on budgeting. I'm a big Dave Ramsey guy. I think everything he teaches is really good. And it's because I knew what was outgoing and seeing versus the incoming that was there, but looking at the difference in cost of living. And when you finally did the math, it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? And at some point too, you always think about your wife and your kids, and your hourly rate doesn't define who you are as a father or a husband. You know what I mean? And it just got past that point on the scales where I'm like, what is my kid going to say? I made an extra $100,000. That's what he's going to say when I'm 25.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or whatever the number was. And it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. That was a big factor for us of like, what's the best life we could give our kids? And it's not, I wouldn't even let not that I wouldn't let my wife didn't want to go downtown, and we lived in a small, town in Northern California, like 100,000 people, not big. But downtown was like overrun with homeless, like not
Spokane's getting close to Skid Row. I'm sorry to tell people that is
bad.
Getting real close.
Yeah.
I grew up there, man.
Dude,
downtown
it's getting
is
bad.
rough.
And it's like, you don't want my wife's not equipped to deal with that. My kids aren't equipped to deal with that. Like, no. That was a big factor for us. Like, we got to get out. We got to find somewhere where that does not exist.
There was a lot of reasons. Like, I always thought of like that example I had where the man with the knife, right? I'd much rather be tried by a jury of 12 of North Idahoans than a jury of 12 in Southern California.
Right.
You know what I mean? And another thing too, I thought of macro big picture was you think about the spouses for your children, and they grew up here with a lot of the same values and beliefs that we had. And now you don't have this massive infighting that, you know what I mean, doesn't need to be there, because everyone grew up the same way, believing mostly the same things, which I think Idaho has the best beliefs in the country. Obviously, everyone else does. That's why they're moving here.
Right.
So.
Valid point.
No, and that is, you're talking about a jury of 12 of a sampling of your citizens. And if you're in one of those cities where they are priming those citizens to automatically distrust law enforcement and believe what they're telling you is a lie, that's a scary proposition when your lives are in the hands of 12.
When then Gascon reopening the adjudicated police shootings that were like 5 years old, reopening those.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm just like,
wow.
No.
That's tough.
No, dude.
I had heard qualified immunity was going away. I don't know if that actually happened or not.
That was close before I left. I don't know if that went down. I think it was Colorado. It did before I left.
That is.
I wasn't sticking around to find out, man. There was no dollar amount that was worth my children's well-being, my wife's well-being. It just wasn't. Like, I remember during the riots, another crazy story was during the riots, this thing got out on Facebook like, hey man, trying to Google any cop's name you can think of or look anybody up because every single cop's working, which was the truth. We were all 24/7 on.
Yep.
And my son was very, very, very young at the time. And I remember I came home super overtime. I was tired as hell. My wife's passed out, and the 45 is sitting there next to the baby monitor on the nightstand. And I'm like, man, she really has to worry about people kicking the door in and all this other stuff. I can go on forever. But
anytime you're going to send me down a rabbit hole, all right, you invite me. This is your fault.
Let's go, buddy.
Anytime immunity of law enforcement gets brought up, I do not understand why there wasn't any national attention or a national push. Why don't we start analyzing immunity of judges? We want to take immunity away from cops that are required to make these rapid decisions in the moment. Tense, rapidly evolving circumstances, and they're required to rely on their training and their schema and everything else that goes into making that really quick decision. And we want to remove their immunity in those circumstances. Judges have the opportunity to look at what their criminal history is, what this person's done historically, what that should tell them about what they're likely to do in the future and the future victims. Why isn't there any discussion about removing judges' immunity? When you put the same 30-year offender back on the street, say a child predator sex offender, and then he rapes and murders somebody. Why isn't that ever a discussion?
It's not making sense.
Well, yeah, I know, but
stop.
that's where it drives me crazy. I get passionate about that because we're so quick to go after cops for making a decision in the moment that a bunch of people that play video games think, oh, I could have done that better.
Yeah.
Come on now. Like,
well, I remember we had the thing where we were going to bring out the psychologist with us to these 5150 calls out in the street.
Golly.
Oh yeah, man, that failed so fast.
That would be hilarious to watch.
Washington's doing that though. They've got somebody that goes out generally unarmed and they're responding to these psychological calls, and then they're all shocked and surprised when really, really bad things happen.
Well, yeah, like there was a guy that was like 6'5", 260, just jacked, and he is jacked out of his mind in the middle of the street, and they're looking at us. I'm like, no, this is. So use your psychology degree. You go, go figure that out, please. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's a failure to recognize those dead eyes, bro.
Dude, ridiculous.
Dead eyes. There's nothing left in there.
They're like, oh, he's gonna punch me. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Who would have predicted that? Hey, but when he does, then I have a lawful reason to go intervene.
Right, dude.
You're welcome.
That place will never recover, which sucks because I grew up there. It was a beautiful state. You could do absolutely. I mean, you know what I mean. You could do everything you wanted. It has just been run into the ground. I think past the point of no return.
Right.
in my opinion.
And geographically, California is so freaking awesome.
Dude, it's incredible.
It is.
Parks out there.
I think it'll have to get worse, unfortunately, before people will change their viewpoints and things will happen. And I don't know what that looks like for the citizens there. It sucks.
It's too late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
Good luck figuring that out.
Not
Yeah.
our
Right.
problem.
Yep.
That's true.
Sounds like a you problem.
What have your boys said since you came up?
My boys down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they told me that I know radio calls since the last like 3 or 4 years have gone up 25% since I left. You know what I mean? Which is 3 years ago. Yeah. So we were talking about it. I think I've only gone code 3 here maybe 8 or 9 times in 3 years. And I can vividly remember like 21, 22 times in a day, just flying around and
Everywhere.
dodging zombies. And
Yeah.
talk about playing video games like Grand Theft Auto Live, dude. It was horrible. Horrible.
It sounds kind of fun. A little
It was cool. I mean, what was funny is like anytime a pursuit came in, usually as a chippies came flying through because they had a busted taillight or something they would pursue for. But
Hell yeah.
transients just parted like the Red Sea. So of course, when we're trying to go to something, they would just zombie onto the street. But man, CHP came in.
Yeah.
They were right
Get
out the
out.
way.
They recognize the tip of the spear, dude. That's
Gets
what it
big.
is.
That's
Hey,
what it
that's
is.
it.
They'd see that hat and they're like, I ain't messing with that.
That hat was
Okay.
badass. Yeah.
That was legit.
That hat is badass.
I literally never wore it.
Really?
I just couldn't do it. Yeah. No, couldn't do
I'll
it.
bet there's a picture out there with you.
I don't get why you
my
guys.
graduation. That might have been the only time I wore it.
I just don't understand why you guys have green jackets and then blue stripes down the side of your pants. That's what made no sense.
Dude, the green jackets. So speaking of Rodney King, like back then,
Yeah, CHP started that whole thing.
I wasn't on
Not
then,
you.
but they had to wear their green jackets, which is like the Class A dress uniform, to the riots. That was like a thing. And like they didn't have helmets at first because that was too tactical. Thankfully, that has all changed. Now, you know, like I was on the SRT team, we would roll out in blue utility uniform, like it's washable. It's not like your Class A uniform. And we had all the gear. Like,
Yeah.
it was like we're pretty good at that shit now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think patrol in general, law enforcement in general, a lot of them gone to jumpsuit. Things are a little bit more functional.
There's so much room for activity in those.
Yes.
God, they're so nice.
They are.
I love those damn things.
It's tactical
It is.
pajamas.
It's 100%. He's not lying.
They're so nice. Well,
100%.
here, part of the reason we really wanted to get you on here is you're a dude that's had some success transitioning from California up here. That's not always the case. It can be a tough transition. It's cool to give some people some info on how you were able to make that transition because policing up here is just different. And then obviously the financial shift from California where you're making more annually. And I've watched you share that with a bunch of our new guys, which is cool because that's where you got to get started. Give us a breakdown, like how you made that work.
So I was, you know, you talked about another podcast and obviously you do it at work, but the way you pay attention to guys on drugs and you're analyzing everything, that's how I was at work with old timers. So what was cool with the department so big is you saw pretty much every outcome from decisions they made throughout their career. There was some example of something either you wanted or didn't want. And you can learn just as much from the guys who you didn't want to be. You know what I mean? And the guys, you know, it is what it is. The guy's been divorced 4 times and has alimony on 6 kids. You know what I mean? His take home pay is like
and he's working till he's
600
60.
bucks. Yep,
Yeah.
and he's there till forever. You know what I mean? And I always thought money was a big deal because it's number one cause for divorce. Being a cop, higher divorce rate. Having a special needs child, higher divorce rate. You know what I mean? So what was one thing I could control, which was the money. I love making money doing nothing. I love passive income. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. I've always liked numbers too because they're facts. It's not feelings like, oh, this feels cool or this, you know, like it was like, no, if I do this, this is the outcome, you know, and I'm very analytical in that sense. But budgeting and being debt free besides the house, I thought was a big part. We didn't have payments of, I mean, what's the average car payment right now is $735 a month. By the way, I looked that up today. You know what I mean? Yeah, dude. So not having stuff like that. I got really lucky too. My wife, when she started, she was living at home as a nurse and she invested 10% right off the bat, never knew it and left it. So that was kind of cool. And I finally got into the investing and looking into our retirement account. I'm like, where'd you get that? I just started it. Like, that's outstanding.
Yeah, awesome.
And that was a perk. I didn't know that when I married her. So
I made a good choice.
That was an added bonus. No, I think being intentional with your money and understanding where it's going and the opportunity cost of the stuff that you buy, the things that you spend money on now that lose value or will either fall off or give you kind of a short-term gratification and what it costs you long-term when you're looking down the road when you want to retire or
Give us
to
a
Idaho.
prime example of that of a new officer.
Okay. So actually I wrote it because I didn't want to do bad podcasting and look it up on my phone while I was doing this. I brought my handy dandy notebook, like it's Blue's Clues. All right. So if you are 20 years old and you invest $100 a month till you're 30 and you stop, right? So man, I hit 30, I already put in my stuff. I'm done. Right. By the time you're 65, you have $668,000. Okay. let's say you partied it up like most of us.
That's $100 a month.
$100 a month from 20 to 30 and stopping at 30.
God dang it.
Okay.
An idiot.
Hey, man, this is what I'm here for. I'm hoping young people listen to this, man, more than anything. Now, if you're 30 and you're like, okay, now I'll start doing $100 a month.
Yeah.
Then you stop at 65. So you're doing $100 a month, 25 years longer. Wait, 15 years longer. You only end up with 379,000. So from 668 to 379. And you put it in
$100.
Yeah, $100 a month, man. So I did another one. Because I love doing this.
Where were you when I started?
No, but I listened to old timers, man, and they would tell me like, dude, every raise you get, that's money you're not even used to having.
Like, put it away.
Perfect example. We got a raise coming in October, right? 2%. So I did the math on that. So it's 87 cents, roughly an hour, ends up being about $140 a month. I'm 37. So if I invest that till I'm 65, that is $256,000 with an average 10% return. So the history of the stock market averages 10%. And that includes every world war, COVID, the dot-com bubble. You know what I mean? So the longer you're in the game, really it's time in the market, not timing the market. Like another example, right? So a lot of people are like, oh man, it's an investment or election year. I don't want to invest this year. It's up 16% right now. So you just lost out on 16%,
right.
You know, trying to be cool. And oh man, I watched a YouTube video.
Time in the market, not timing the market.
Yeah, man. And the more with that compound interest and getting those dollars and those army of dollar bills to work for you, while you're screwing around playing Mortal Kombat. Not that I ever do that, but
Mortal Kombat's legit. You just aged the crap out of yourself.
Dude, hey, Homelander just got added on Mortal Kombat now. It's bad, dude. It's bad. No, but it's, you know, like, okay, so the average car payment is $735, like I said earlier, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you're 35 and you're like, no, I'm not gonna do that new car. I'll just save and pay cash, right? If you invested that $735 a month from 35 to 65, you have $1.6 million.
Dude.
Okay, let's talk to the young guys, right? So we all know young cops, man, they get off probation, getting a Raptor. I'm gonna do all kinds of
1500, bro.
You know what I mean? Yeah, dude, gotta get the Rebel, right? All right. If you invest 735 when you're 25 till the age of 65, that is $4.6 million.
Dude,
I don't care how cool your car is or your truck or whatever. 4.6 mil is a lot cooler. And that's the kind of stats. Cause again, it's facts over feelings. It's just, hey, you put this in and this is what it'll do for you.
Right.
So yeah.
Unfortunately for me, I had to get it out of my pockets.
Yeah.
Like I just had to immediately get it out of my paycheck immediately. So I never saw it. And then it's like, oh God, I wish I'd done that 10, 15 years prior.
And kind of how my wife and I work with our finances, I call it forced scarcity. So every single Monday, that amount that we budget that goes into those retirement accounts, I'm used to that going in because I look at my budget every month, not what's in my savings account. You see what I mean? So the app I use Every Dollar by Dave Ramsey, by the way. Every time that I use it, it keeps track and I have the income versus spent and I can do year to date, last 8 months, last 6 months. So when we were talking about moving here and it was like, oh man, I'm taking this huge pay cut, blah, blah, blah. And then I look, I'm like, all right, well, I saved $250 a month in gas. You see what I mean? My property taxes just dropped. Like when I sold my house, the supplemental tax came to me on accident. Supplemental tax was 16 grand.
Damn.
No, I thought that was me for a second, but they're like, oh no, it's for the other homeowner that just bought your house. But that was just a supplemental tax.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Another cool stat I did, I know we talked about this earlier, but when I was talking to my wife about moving up here and, you know, doing it for the kids and, you know, she doesn't like change. I love it, but you know, I totally get it. You're uprooting your whole life. We're making great money. We have a lot of days off. We got Disneyland to take the kids, you know. I did the math. So instead of working 2 days a week, she now works 1 day a week. And at the time when my son, I think, was 3, now she gets 6 more years of time with him before he's 18, switching to 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And there's no amount of money that ever bought a second at a time. You know what I mean? And that's a big deal. And again, you're not defined by your hourly rate. Like my sons will be able to talk about the time they got to spend with us and do things with us as opposed to, well, my dad made a lot more.
Right.
Or another example too is like, you know, when my boys get older and they're like, yeah, well, my dad did LAPD for 9 years. Well, the only difference is they're not saying 20.
Right.
Like the story's already there. You know what I mean? It just, the scales are just not close. I'm floored more people don't move here, but it is what it is. I mean, I know money isn't really talked about as a kid. It's one of those taboo things. Right. And with my dad was, and he still is. And by the way, it's their 2-month anniversary for moving here. So I'm proud of you guys. Okay. Yeah, dude, they're loving it. Dude, his stress level. I was telling him, my dad's like, I don't know what to do with my hands, dude. Like he's losing it, dude.
Yeah, used to zombies everywhere.
Oh my God, he loves it. But the tipping point for them was when they were thinking about outlawing tackle football for kids under 12.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you can do all this other stuff to kids down here, but you can't, as a parent, have the choice of like, hey, Johnny's playing football or not. We're just going to take that away. But if you want to do I don't want to get too political, but if you want to do the other things to kids' bodies that they're doing, that's cool.
Don't kids at that age get to decide whether or not they're a boy or a girl?
I don't even
They can't
know.
play tackle football.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think money is something that needs to be talked about. I think this is the stuff that should be taught in schools. I think people say the dumbass analogy, like, oh, teach them how to balance a checkbook. No one balances checkbooks, dude. Like 1987 called, no one wants that analogy. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's super important that especially with younger kids, like look at the difference, right? I mean, that's $300,000.
That's incredible.
And 15 years less.
Right.
You know what I mean? And my goal with my wife too is to get to the point where all the dividends we're earning every year in our stuff. And I've showed you my accounts, not in a brag way, but as a, hey, this is proof of concept kind of thing. You'll get to the point where your growth every year is how do I say it correctly? Like your account becomes like Skynet. It doesn't need you anymore. So that $500, $600 a month or 14 grand a year, whatever it is, you don't need that anymore, because if you're making 90, 100 grand a year, now you just gave yourself a $500-$600 a month raise. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And your account's just working for you, and you don't
Dude,
playing this Homelander.
I feel like I failed.
Yes.
I remember I was in the academy and someone came in and, they talked about 457s and I was like,
great account.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
thing too is the HSAs, another incredible account. That
is that
count,
the
like,
health savings
dude, that
account?
goes in tax free, grows tax free, and you use it tax free. That's one of the few accounts that gets all three. So we have one for us, and a lot of guys are like, "Oh yeah, man, I paid this bill for 150, did that for 200, did whatever." I'm like, man, you are costing yourself thousands and thousands of dollars, because that's what you could use to bridge the gap to pay for health insurance if you retire early.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that account is set up for you just waiting. You know what I mean? And it just, you just take the penalty now of like, man, that sucks. I had to pay $200 for this. But then when you're 58,
Yeah.
waiting to get to 59 and a half to get this stuff, you know what I mean? That you've saved your whole life for.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can bridge the gap because I just sucked it up when it happened. So, I mean, I wasn't perfect at first too. I did a lot of dumb shit. Like,
Yeah.
So I,
Buying new cars. Dude, I did that in the military. Thrift. You were talking about that with your academy.
Yeah.
Thrift savings plan in the military. They're like, you save this up and it grows. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have so much money later. I'm not worried about it.
Exactly,
Watch me dance.
right?
And I'm
That's-
like, oh,
That's where, and for me, like it was, and maybe this is me justifying it, I don't know, but it was like tight. Like I made good money in California, but my wife didn't work. You know what I mean? So I was like, can I afford? So there were times I could not even afford 500 a month, right?
right.
I think I did 50 a month and I started late. I was 5 years in, and I was like, oh, I better probably do that. Finally, like an old lieutenant was like, dude, what are you doing?
yeah.
And I finally started putting $50 a month in, and but I only did that for 10 years, not even 9 years before I left.
But what'd you get though?
It was 15,000, right?
It's 50
For
grand.
$50 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's insane. I mean, another thing I was talking about with my dad on the way down here too was, the freedoms of Idaho, right? Like you don't have to vaccinate your kids if you don't want to. However, everyone feels about it, that's up to them, but you don't have to. So a lot of my guys down there, they don't want to vaccinate their kids. Well, now they can't find pediatricians that'll treat them because they're not vaccinated, or they can't find daycares. And it's like, if you're a dual income family and now your wife has to quit
Yeah.
because she has to do that, how much did that cost you an hour as a family?
Right.
You see what I mean? When here you have all the freedoms to do whatever you want with your kids, which is how it should be, because the government's not going to tell you to do with my sons, but
Yeah.
that's just me.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Like your kids aren't going to remember how much you made,
Nope.
right? And how much you made truly isn't determining
It's
the
what you
wealth.
keep.
Yes,
what you
exactly.
keep.
It's the wealth that doesn't determine the wealth that you accumulate.
Mhm.
If your house is way more expensive, if your insurance is more expensive, if buying groceries is more expensive, if everything, California's freaking expensive.
Sucks.
I still go down there for reserves, like San Diego area. It's just freaking expensive.
Dude, yeah, even the time you spend on the freeway, like I do the math on everything, as you can tell, but I did the math on, so some of my commutes, man, like going to where I lived in Upland, coming from downtown, that was 50 miles, and that's the 10 freeway, which that goes to Vegas. You catch that on a Friday, I'm not kidding, it takes you almost 3 hours to get home.
Man.
So I did the
Wow.
math on my commute now, which is much shorter, and it's about 2 weeks a year that I get
Solid,
extra
yeah.
solid
Wow.
weeks and hours. Yeah.
Not
That's just time with your kids that you don't get back, man. You know what I mean? They're only Disney. I give them credit. Best advertising ever. They're only little for a little. I'm like, fuck, that's a good one.
yeah. There was
Sorry, I wasn't supposed to cuss, but
No, you're
No,
fine.
dude, there's a guy at our agency that said something that made a lot of sense. He's like, man, there was just this realization that you've got 18 summers.
Yep.
You have 18 summers and they're gone.
Yep.
Then they're
Yeah.
out doing their own thing. And they
Yeah.
say for those first 18, you spend like 70 something percent of your time with them. And then after that, it drops immediately to like 24, 23 or something like
Yeah.
that.
I am currently experiencing that with my kid. My oldest is 16, and it's like, wow, I barely see him anymore.
Yeah.
He drives. He's got his own door out the house where he parks his car, and it's like,
Right.
he's like super independent. I'm like, whoa.
See you, Dad.
Yeah.
But you've done a good job. So he's independent. He can take care of
Yeah.
himself. He's responsible. He gets himself ready for school. He does all of those things, which you've been training him to do. And then you're like, damn it.
I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing I want to touch on too, I know for sure, is the different types of accounts for kids. So in Idaho, it's really cool. Once again, you can write off up to 10 grand a year for the 529 out of Idaho.
Ooh.
So people who are looking to cut their tax amount, you could do that, because I'd rather give it to my kids than Joe Biden. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think what scares people is, well, what if he goes to the military? What if he gets a scholarship? What if whatever? You can transfer all that to another child completely penalty free. So let's say you started with your oldest, and your oldest goes in the Air Force or whatever. I'm not going to say Navy, but although, side note, my great uncle did survive Pearl Harbor though. So he was
that's
a
pretty
bad dude.
Yeah.
Just say not submarine. So
No,
submarine.
he's a beast. But no, another part of it too, and this just changed about 2 years ago, I think. They signed it into law in Congress that money, if it's not used, I believe right now is up to 38 grand. You can roll over right into their retirement.
Oh.
Yeah. So if, let's say it doesn't get used, and what else is cool too is you can use it for trade school too. So like that awesome place at the
K-Tech.
academy, that all can get paid for. And the one thing you cannot go bankrupt on is student loans. You can go bankrupt a million times, you still owe that money. And you meet people and talk to people who are behind on those, and how much they have to, like, it's just a weight that you're just never going to overcome. And if you can avoid that for your kids by you just being the adult and understanding that really once you have kids, it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you don't want to be that burden to your kids when you're older. But yeah, so and that's what I do for my youngest one too. And so another thing, I don't know, I'll never shut up. But
It's fine. Keep
No,
going.
now I feel like a terrible human.
No,
Just write down 529.
No, it's got to be ideal 529. It's got to be a certain one through Idaho. So, but I just lost my train of thought because you were.
Here, I'll jump in. So I feel a little better because we did start 529s for our kids when they were very young,
Yep.
and now like they have a lot of money in there now.
Well, think about, like, if you have, I didn't prep that one, but if you had 38 grand in the bank at 18 years old and never even put in another dime, I would love to see that number by
Right.
the time you're 65.
Yeah.
And now the kids can worry about, housing's higher, right? Well, now I can focus more on the down payment or my monthly payment because I'm not having to worry as much, at least on the front end, about retirement. So that's a big deal.
You have to send me that link. We'll drop that in the video.
Yeah,
that
29.
Idaho Ideal 529. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it's
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
but of course, California, that wasn't a write-off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's a
Save it for your
$10,000
kids.
write-off,
Up to.
dude.
Yeah. And then this is what I was going to say. So obviously people who know me, I'm super numbers oriented, obviously. So with my kids, especially with the younger one, I have two sons. When my younger son comes up for Christmas or birthdays or whatever, man, he's only 9 months old. I don't need a $35 cheap toy from Target from China
Thank
that's
you.
going to break when I could throw that into his account, because your kids are still going to want cars. They're still going to want, you know what I mean? These things are coming. So when people are like, oh, I've waited too long, there's still more stuff coming.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get to that age. Now, of course, comic could hit us tomorrow and we all blow up, and doesn't mean anything, but
There's
I like
that.
to think. Yeah.
There's
I
that.
like to think.
Right.
That is a possible outcome, right? But yeah, no, that's freaking huge, dude. Like
Yeah.
having that set aside for the kids. So I guess like for my own well-being in my mind, like I did fail on the 457 tip, I think, but the 529 thing, I think I got that covered. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
I mean, even if you just do a taxable account, like through Betterment or something like that, where you'll get taxed on the growth for it, but you can pull that at any time. There's no penalty on that.
Yeah.
So you could set like a target date where you're like, hey, let's set it for when the kid turns 18. So the closer it gets, it'll automatically make it less and less aggressive. So let's say the market takes a massive dump, you're this much exposed as opposed to your entire portfolio.
Do you have a money market person, or do you do it yourself? Like, how do you do that?
I do have, I have some guys right down the street right here who have been awesome. They helped roll over my old pension and my old 457 and combine everything with my wife, because we were split up all over the place. So I was like, all right, now that we're moved, I want to get everything under one roof, and then I'm able to check it all the time. I'm weird. I check the stock market like 30 times a day, but the average person should literally just put it in there and never look at it again.
Mhm.
And then it's money you're not even used to having, and it's just doing all the work for you. It's a good time. I really love it.
Is this what I look like when I'm talking about drugs?
Yeah,
Is that
the passion is
Yes.
visible,
Yeah,
but I
I
mean,
mean,
it's good.
Yeah, I just think of the bigger picture, which is your wife and kids. I already got to do a lot of cool stuff when I was younger, and I lived that part of my life. And I'm just dad. So
Just that.
That 457 is kind of a cool thing. If
It
you
is.
want to break that down real quick,
Yeah.
especially somebody, because we get people coming from other states where they've already got 15 or 20 years in.
Yeah.
Honestly, the prospect of making it to retirement age in Idaho with the rule Percy of 80 may not be there. And that's why the 457 is kind of a cool option.
yeah, so what's cool about 457 is it's like a basic retirement account for people, but most people can't access that till 59 and a half. Most public servants, fire, police, I'm not sure about military stuff, but fire and police, at least that I know of, you get access to that money the second you retire. So you don't have to wait till 59 and a half. Yeah. So it's a big deal. I don't personally use one, but I'm like, again, I'm super weird and do my own thing. But for the overwhelmingly vast majority of people, that would be an outstanding account.
Well, or you leave. So if you get terminated, or if you walk away and decide to leave law enforcement, which no blame for those that need to do that too, you have access to your 457B.
Yeah. Just don't blow it like a lot of other people.
So I should not buy a boat with that.
I mean, and I'm all for buying stuff, but like afford it, man. You know, like listen to those old timers. They'd be like, man, I purchased a car. I purchased a boat. They didn't say, oh, the payment's this, or, hey, I bought that and I'll pay it off. And, you know, not everyone's perfect. You know what I mean? But just listen to those little cues of like, what, like, stop buying stuff you can't afford to impress people you don't even like.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just, and I stole that from Dave Ramsey, but you know what I mean? It's the truth. Like, no one cares what, like, I don't even know what truck you have.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
You don't care, right?
No.
Yeah.
He has a cool truck though.
I bet he does. If it's the one that's parked next to mine, it's pretty badass.
I feel very fortunate. So like, oh, damn, I lost my train of thought too. I had a thought about that. It's coming back. Give it a second. I lost it.
Performance issues.
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's like, it's gone. Fuck it.
It's cool.
Move on.
I get weird with the numbers.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's seen me do it. I implore the young guys, and I do it for the pre-phase people when they first start, and just try to make sure they understand the importance of even just the smallest amount. Because that compound interest and that snowball rolling is just incredible to watch. Like,
do they receive it well?
Some do. Like every once in a while, I'll get one of the younger guys that comes up like, "Hey, what'd you say about this? What'd you say about that?" The biggest pushback I get is like, "Well, it's in the market." And I'm like, "All right, well, first off, a Roth IRA. Let's say you put in 25 grand, and let's say the total account's worth 100. So you had 75% of interest. That 25 grand that you put in, you could pull out no penalty because that's already been taxed. So really, it's like a second savings account. I would never condone doing it that way, but hey, man, shit hits the fan. Life happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's you know, caught up in the market. I'm like, what's your guys' profession caught up in? The market. Yeah. You know what I mean? How much does groceries cost, gas, all that other stuff? Like every single thing in life really is tied to the market. So when people say that, I'm like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
So what are the basics people should have covered? Like, are there multiple, like I've heard Roth a lot. I don't have one, but like, I feel like maybe I should have one. Like, how would you recommend? And I know you're not going to call yourself an expert. He's not an expert.
I'm not. No.
But you clearly, this is your passion. So I'll take your advice on that.
Yeah, but understand your audience, bro. You're a Skid Row street cop, and you can speak intelligently to people that were the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the Roth IRA, in my opinion, is the coolest because it grows tax free. So then once you do have access to it, you got access to all of it, and you don't owe the government a dime. So it sucks because initially you're paying taxes on it. So it's a lesser amount, like it's a bigger chunk of your take home pay. But the long-term ramifications of that are incredible. I did not do that. So I did the traditional first, which you get more in the pot, but at the very end, you're gonna have to pay income tax on that.
Okay.
So you get more in the pot to grow, which is cool. Actually, I think is not bad when you're younger because you get so much early that, you're gonna have to pay Uncle Sam at some point, but at least you can build your nest egg a little bit faster, you know what I mean? And worry about that.
Higher.
Right. And like, to me, if you're asking me about either one of those things, you're already on the right track.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when guys are like, well, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Like, you're going to be 55 anyway.
Well, you're talking to new guys and young guys that want the instant gratification. So if that number's larger, they're going to be more likely to save their money. But dude, you were talking about it in our briefing and you were so passionate about it. I was like, dude, you got to get in front of all the new guys. Because honestly, that's what resonates. If you get one or two of them to say, yeah, that makes sense. This next, because we compress fast, right? So when you get here, I think you started out topped out, but we compress pretty quick. So when they get that next big pay bump, if you can afford it, dude, just bite the bullet and dump it.
Like we were talking about at court, the guy we work with who's going to be on your team next, I was telling him, hey man, the second that thing starts, you're going to get a raise. Like, again, that's money you're not used to having. Throw that stuff in there,
right?
You know, and you get used to it. And then, like I've shown you on my accounts, I'll be like, hey man, look, I made this many thousands and 6 hours,
right?
You know what I mean? And be like, that's cool, right? To me anyway, right? Like, side by sides are cool. And I'm not talking down to people that buy experiences and stuff and buy those things, but like, just afford it, man, or realize the opportunity cost of that $735 a month truck payment of what it could be. You know, drive the beater, 2000 Tacoma. Who cares? Because when you're rolling at 4.6 and they're calling you guys like, hey, I want that thing in Hauser. Cash. That's way cooler than whatever truck you were cruising around in.
I guess my argument when I was younger, and it's not a good argument, but you might hear this, is like, I got a good pension. Like, when I retire, I'm going to be fine. And my pension was great in California. Now, my career did not end up the way I thought, right? So here I am. Now I've only got 14 years in, and I'll get something, but it's not like a full pension by any
I'm glad that happened.
I'm
glad that
Thanks, well, like for LAPD, you weren't even invested till 20 years, and then you couldn't collect till 55, at least on my tier. So I had to do 30 total years. And I would talk about it with my dad. It's called the golden handcuffs. You probably all heard it. You know what I
Pension
mean?
trap. I call it the pension
Oh.
trap.
Yeah, same thing. And he was just like, how miserable are you going to be at 50? You know what I mean? 55, 30 years on this job when I was just a miserable dude. And it sucked because I love the job. I mean, you see it. I genuinely love being a cop. I do. I love messing with bad guys and I love helping good people. But forcing yourself to go through that, like what kind of stress on your body and all the mental health, like you've talked about on other podcasts, that stuff is super important, man. And again, that there's no,
It's the most important thing. I think a lot of people forget that, right? I'm in retiree groups up here. So I'm around a lot of 30-year retired cops. And they're all physically broken,
Right.
Yeah.
like all of them. I'm mentally broken too, right? There's a huge toll. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't do the job, but I'm saying like if you're in a position like you were and you're not happy, like you can find a better place. It doesn't have to be North Idaho. I'm not pitching it that hard, but
I think it's awesome.
but you know, like maybe you need to find something else.
Yeah.
And I was there. Like I think anybody you hit like for me it was like the 10-year mark. I was like, sorry, I don't know. I just wasn't happy.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I've always said you either got to love what you're doing or love where you're living. If you can get both of those things checked off, you're killing it life. But you got to love where you're living or love what you're doing.
Yeah. It's an incredible place, I think. But again, I think finances has a lot to do with it because like we were talking about that sticker shock of like, oh man, I'm going from 57 an hour to 35. How am I going to survive?
Right.
Which on its face, if you don't know how much you're spending a month and you don't, you know what I mean? Like, of course, you just look at that number. That's the easy number to look at. But when you dig through the data, it's like, oh, we could swing this. You know what I mean? Because we don't have all these crazy payments, because we bought a house we could afford, which is another massive thing. I think people just way overpay on houses. But
yeah. What do you think? You know, because I hear these, I don't hear the numbers, but I hear like credit card debt nationally is like an all-time high.
Crazy.
Is that people not living within their means, or is it people not getting paid enough? Like, what do you think?
I mean, I'm sure everyone would say they like to get paid more for what they do, no matter what it is. I think, again, that's just funneling a lifestyle you can't afford. And I don't get it. I mean, again, I had credit card debt when I was younger. So it's not like, again, I'm not perfect with money, but realizing that interest works against you the same way it works for you. So that thing's kicking your ass when you're sitting on the couch, as opposed to it working for you. We switched using a debit card primarily. Very few times we actually use a credit card, because I think there's something to be said for when you see every single transaction, as opposed to, oh, hey, we at the end of the month, it was $2,500. You just pay it. And that's where you find the margin, the budget for that extra $100 a month,
Right.
and all those other things. Or another tip we did, and you guys can do this with your wife. It kind of worked, I think. What's cool is I'll do the year. I'll go on Amazon and you go on your purchases for the year. And what's
dear
cool
God.
is, hey, I know, dude. I know, right? My wife, dude. Anyway,
We're going to talk about divorce in the next podcast. Bring up Amazon.
but it's pretty cool because it has the photos next to it. So one time we were drinking, and which we do a lot. Sorry, but sorry, Mom. But you'll look at it, it has the photos next to it, and you'll go through and be like, well, fuck, did we really use that?
Like, well, yeah,
Like, how long did
the
that
thing
thing
broke like a
last?
week later?
Yeah, man. And it's just like, once you start looking at it that way, and again, the opportunity cost of like, man, that extra $60 could have been, you know, however much in this certain time period. So
that has to be really, really annoying living with you. Because if you're like, hey, that $80 or that, let's say that $150 you spent on your hair, that would be $4,000.
I gotta pick my battles. Don't get me wrong.
Yes. If I bring up hair, it's over. It's
So
over.
you find comfort in that. Some people that might stress them out. I don't know, or not stress them out, but like make them be like, you know, I guess like that short-term gratification, right? That's hard for people. I think like some people might look at that and be like, I don't want to live so regimented. I want to just, you know, you only live once, YOLO, man.
Oh yeah. And there's something to be said for that too. But like part of our budget is a certain chunk for like fuck around money. That's what I call it. I keep cussing, sorry.
That's
but
all right. It's fine.
That's part of it is
Right.
like, you know what I mean? I budget for that stuff, and whatever part of that doesn't get used gets rolled over to the next month. And then that's how it's like, hey, you want to go do something? It's $2,000. Oh, okay. We only got to find $100 in the budget this month, and we hit it. You know what I mean? And to me, there's something cooler about being able to pay for the experiences as opposed to going into debt for them. And
How's that any different than a cheat day on a diet?
yeah,
Like if you're regimented and you're taking
Yeah.
care of your body and trying
Yeah.
to take care of yourself, and you afford yourself that one day a week or that one day every 2 weeks to go cheat, how's that any different?
It kind of makes me think of, you know, Jocko's thing, like discipline equals freedom, right? There is a huge amount of freedom in what you're doing.
and I think that's what translated to us being able to move here was that discipline I didn't know that I needed until I needed it. You know what I mean? And that work was already done, you know, so I'm a big believer in it, really.
That's cool though, man, because we talked about, you mentioned, you know, mental health, and so do you. You know, we emphasize that. That's a big part of law enforcement, but the confidence to be able to get out, having the confidence in your ability to manage your own budget, still save money, and still develop some of that wealth, because cops always say, oh, I don't have any other skill set.
Yep.
These are life skills.
Yeah.
Like these are life skills that would span well beyond law enforcement, and the comfort with going into you could say this here of cops here now. Can I afford to go take a job where I get paid a little bit less hourly here locally? Can I afford to do that?
Yeah.
You got to start breaking it down like this. And if you need to bounce from law enforcement, I've always been the type where it's like, man, I get it. If it's not in you.
But I mean, the stress alone of uprooting your whole life and being away from your family and your kids and everything else, on top of the fact, if you're in debt, like I probably wouldn't make that move either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
but like you said, that freedom in that discipline really helps. And yes, it is very annoying to live with me. My wife can confirm.
But you know what? Like, she'll be really, really thankful at some point.
No, and then
She probably is now.
yeah, and then we have we have another account too for my older son that's a taxable account, and we don't know what we're going to have to use that for because he's special needs, and he might live with us forever, but that account is still growing and growing and growing. And let's say he lives with us forever, but we end up finally getting land, and I can build a little side house on the side.
Yeah.
I can pay for that with cash. And now I'm still collecting whatever retirement or whatever, and that's paid
Right.
for. And now I get to, do whatever I can to help my son, and having that stuff paid for, so that if my younger son, he's going to have that burden of taking care of him possibly forever. How the hell am I going to pass down all this debt to him?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? When it's like, here's everything I did and saved for, and everything me and your mom worked towards. Like, here's this to help you get through your next chunk of your life. You know what I mean? That to me is just way cooler than some of the stuff people buy. But
What's like an actionable step, someone who's like brand new and maybe they're 40 and it's like, oh, it seems overwhelming, right? And you're like, what's an actionable step? What's the first obvious step that they should take?
doing the budget, just in the sense of finding margin, because a lot of guys will be like, oh, I just don't have an extra $100. I'm like, man, all right, how much you spend on Red Bulls? We're all cops, right? How much is Red Bulls a month, right? How much is Zyn? How much is, and I buy my lunch every week, like how many streaming services do we got?
Yeah.
It's like 70, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, hey, you're paying for Hulu Live just to watch one show. It's like $80 a month. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There is stuff in there that anyone can find, that you just put that in. Again, a good starter one is betterment.com. It's like robo investing. So it takes all of it out of there, and you just set a date for when you want it. And let's say, hey man, I got a big purchase in 10 years, right? All right, let's say you want, I don't know, pick a number. Let's say you want 50 grand, right? It'll tell you, okay, well, if you want 50 grand in 10 years based on our algorithms, this is about what you're going to need to save. And again, it automatically, the closer you gets more and more and more conservative. So you're not exposed to the market. And I think that's something really cool that is very easy. It's right on your phone. I mean, and then just set those recurring payments, man. And first of every month, you just don't even miss it because you already know it's coming.
And I guess like if you're like me and maybe I'm not that smart, I don't like to think about numbers. We just hired a financial advisor,
Mhm.
and it's just like, somebody I trusted. He's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so it's like, we go there. But like I just totally defer to him.
Yeah.
I just kick everything to him. It's
Yeah.
like that works for me because I'm not a numbers guy. So I mean that's an option, right? Like just
100%.
have somebody else do it.
Like, even me who does all this stuff, I have a financial advisor. It's almost like a doctor having a doctor, in the sense of I like that second opinion of like, hey, man,
And he's
this is what-
independent. He's
Yeah.
looking at third party.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
like, and what's cool, he can talk a little more jargon to me than probably most, but in the same sense of the word, it's like, all right, man, this is what I was thinking. He's like, no, you don't want to do that. I'm like, well, why? And he has an explanation,
Mhm.
right? And so for me, there's that extra comfort in, they're taking a percentage of it, but the fact that it's going to grow. I mean, again, you see my stuff, like the fact that it grows the way it does with their help, like it's worth every penny to me. But
Yeah, just looking at mine, like, and I had just started this very recently, and it was like, we just had a meeting with him yesterday, and it was like almost 8% growth
Mhm.
on it. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's pretty cool.
doing nothing,
Yeah.
Right. Nothing.
it's behavior with money, really.
Yeah.
I did not start a 457B. I've been a cop locally for 10 years. I didn't start it till I got to the PD my first year.
Yeah.
Watching the growth, holy crap. That's of course the biggest regret, but it's never too late to start.
No.
I've watched that just explode, and I never even noticed it just
Yeah.
because I knew that if I bumped the max and I could afford it, then it would just get more affordable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because the 457 I do mine through Nationwide, but you can do it through
Mhm.
different, but there's only so much of your income that you can put in there per year.
Yep.
So I knew if I maxed it, it just gets more affordable as I get more raises.
Right.
And then I notice it less.
Yeah.
Right. No, and I think the longer
Never too late.
the longer you're in the market too, the better chance you have of doing better, right? So if the average is 10%, but you're only investing for 10 years, maybe it's 6. Maybe now it could be 17, right? Because it's a shorter amount, but
Right.
the longer you're in there, the more safe it is, because I mean, again, the history of the stock market's 10%.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's including world wars, everything we've had, So.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is. And maybe, maybe my takeaway from this is like, hey, maybe I can help my kids start early and plan. And we did with the 529. They'll have that. My kids are unfortunate. Our house burned down in the campfire up in Paradise. But, there was a lawsuit. Our kids got a chunk of money and we put that with the financial advisor. And I'm like, man, that's going to grow a lot. Like it's a decent chunk of money, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know some parents from that same, not going to call any names out, of course, but they were like, what? We're just going to take that money and use it. And I was like, that's stupid. Like,
No,
that's your kids' money, man. Like, but seeing what that can do, like by the time they're 50, holy crap.
No, the time in the market, especially for youth, is just insane. It's this army of dollar bills just marching and doing the work for you. So
and you were spot on about the stupid toys. Like we did that when our kids were younger too. Like, hey, grandma, put that money in the 529. My kids don't need another freaking Nerf gun. Like, I don't need it.
Right.
They already have 15. Like, put that money in the 529.
Yeah. When they were younger, my son was the first grandbaby, right? So it was just quantity, just so many toys and stuff that he'd never even touched.
Nope.
And then we have to go clear it all out. We did that when we had babies, even like baby showers and stuff. We don't need 4 of these. We need one. My mom, every year for Christmas, it's like probably the least popular, but it's all silver. It's always like silver
That
or
is cool.
something tangible that is growing in value, right? But I think it starts to impress that lesson. My son hasn't taken that lesson and he's in a bunch of shit with me right now. So part of his summer routine in order to get his cell phone back, do not give your kids cell phones until they're freshmen. Like, just don't do it. It's impossible. I've told him anyways, but part of it is he's got 5 books to read. And one of them was financing for teenagers, like understanding the importance that'll start to speak their language and how your money can grow and stop pissing it away on shoes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just to show them what the value of that is, probably just what you're talking about now.
Well, it's like, especially like, you're buying shoes to look cool for the chicks. And I'm like, man, you show them one of these accounts when you're 28. That looks a lot cooler than
that is cool.
I mean, I got them J's. No, dude, no one cares. Like,
exactly. But just the value of paying cash for something, man, so you're not paying on it later on. In our industry, it always blows my mind to see that statement when you talk about what you're actually going to pay for that house by the time your mortgage is paid. And once you pay the bank, dude, there's no more painful piece of paper on the planet, except maybe an aluminum piece of paper.
Yeah.
But no more painful piece of paper than seeing what you're actually going to pay.
Yeah, when you go to sign, they've got it's 30 years.
I love amortization schedules. I read them all the time. I'm weird, man.
Yeah, it's brutal.
I mean, I was just looking at this. We sold our house at a 2.7% interest rate, and then we were looking at a 7% interest rate to rebuy. And you look at the difference in the interest, and it was literally like $2,000 a month. It was bananas.
You broke it down on your listing with the assumables. It was a difference between $5,800 a month and $9,400 a month. Like, and you're just talking about interest.
That's just
to the bank.
Money's gone.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we make double payments on our house trying to get it. We pay it like a 15-year, but what we do is like a visual cue, kind of like for kids. So I have one jar full of nickels, and each nickel represents $1,000, and then the other jar is what we've paid off. And at the first very month, I'm like, all right, bud, we got to move nickels. You know what I mean? And I just hope through that osmosis as they get older to see them move that nickel, and then have that event. That's going in my grave. I don't even care, but I love it. But just having that idea of like, we paid for this. And now, you pay your house off, which I know a lot of people, it's very difficult, but you pay that off. You just gave yourself a $2,000 a month raise.
Yeah.
Right.
Because a penny saves, a penny earned. And once that really dug into my head where it's like, hey, if I don't spend this, I earned it. Again, on Red Bull, whatever, you know what I mean?
But imagine where that would put you now, somebody getting into this 10, 15 years ago, where if you just in 15-year mortgages, we talked a lot about that and how valuable that can be. If you're able to afford that, discipline is freedom. Imagine where that puts you now, where houses are actually it's a bit of a buyer's market. I don't say it's a seller's market, but it doesn't seem that way. But if you've got all that equity, you could level up on a house because there's limited number of buyers based on a 7% interest rate. Like you have more freedom, or move if you're in somewhere that sucks. If you're making good financial decisions early, you have the opportunity to sell it, use that equity, and then buy and live where the hell you want to. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we made the decision when we came up here. We could have got more land. We could have got something bigger, which, I'd love to have. But being able to put down, I think we put down about half. Yeah. You know what I mean? And our on 3%. It's insane. And the freedom.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm almost at the point where it's like, do I keep paying off the house early or invest that extra double payment we do? And that's my biggest issue. And I was talking about it with my dad one day, and he's like, oh, you know, you make me feel good that my oldest son's talking to me about his biggest problem is, do we pay off the house faster? Or, you know what I mean? So he's like, you're making me feel really cool. Yeah. So, but even he kicks himself because and he'll admit to this. We met him actually the other day, but he was one of the guys, old school dudes that would just hold on to cash, right? Like he paid for everything in cash, you know what I mean? But he just held it. Right. And just inflation just eats that away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So really getting that stuff in there, making it work for you, just fights inflation. It just makes your money worth so much more. So
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, man.
I'm shocked. You don't look like that much of a nerd, but
dude,
I'm seeing it now.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Seeing it.
I don't act like it in the streets, but
no, definitely not.
My questioning is so direct.
His interactions are freaking hilarious.
Skid Row cop turned financial advisor.
Dude,
yeah, but he speaks the language to dudes where it makes sense. We're like, damn, okay.
And I think, you know, people need to hear that, right? A young cop, he could hear that from like a nerdy financial advisor, and he'd be like, F this guy, right? But he hears it from you, someone who's done it and does the job, and it's like, okay, like this guy knows what's up.
Well, he's not shy about showing his.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, check this out. If I'd done it earlier, it would have been this. If I'd done it later, if I hadn't done it,
that goes a long way, right?
Yeah.
Dude, like sometimes we'll get a little slower in the afternoon, and I'll show him like, hey, dude, in the last 30 minutes, I made $1,000. You know what I mean? It's not a brag thing. It's just literally anyone can do, like, so easy, even dumbass Will can do it. You know what I mean? That's what I try to show him is you can do this stuff. It's just behavior and choosing the macro picture over the short-term gratification stuff, and really understanding the, you know, opportunity cost of, again, you want to buy the boat and all that stuff with the kids. I totally get it. You know, I'm not against it, but you gotta be able to afford it, man.
Yeah. Okay. So I need a HSA and a Roth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I need to get those in my game.
I need that Idaho
Ideal 529.
529.
Yep.
That's what I need.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, and then what's cool too is you can set up links. Anyone who's an Idaho resident that contributes to that can write that off too. So your parents, uncles, aunts, cool. You know what I mean. So if you're trying to lower your taxable income a little bit, you know what I mean. You can
as
flip
much
it
as
to
I
the
like
kids.
the silver, I might say, hey, why don't you kick that?
Yeah,
because that'll grow.
I got to look into that because I mean we have our 529s. I don't know if it's an Idaho 529.
Yeah, it took me a second when I got here because I knew you could write them off. But in speaking to my financial advisors, I give them credit. They're like, no, it has to be this ideal one.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's a good tip, hopefully, for everybody.
Wait, did you say ideal?
Yeah.
Okay, IDEAL. Okay.
Yep.
We'll get that in there for sure.
Write that down right there.
I should have had my link, damn it, so I get credit for
exactly.
for like recommended.
Hey, give it to me, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Well, if you want to find me on social media, I'm absolutely nowhere. So good luck.
I figured that would be the case. I have this handy
follow. Absolutely nobody.
This is my concerned face.
I have this checklist now to like. So when we have people on, Jackie helped me with this, by the way. I can remember to ask for these. She's great. Yeah, and I was like, he's not gonna have any social media, guaranteed.
Hell no.
That's more for the business owners.
Well, dude, I saw guys in LA get fired for liking stuff, dude. Like, I'm not gonna lose my profession. And then if you get fired for something like that, good luck getting hired somewhere else.
Which is kind of crappy because anybody else can do it, right? Like, why can't you separate my personal life from my business?
Especially when it's just like a like button. You know what I mean? Like, you could just be chilling at home and accidentally hit the wrong damn thing and lose your damn job. Like, no way, dude.
Man, you are going to get me down another freaking rabbit hole in a second. Like, there is nobody's free speech that's more marginalized than cops in the military.
100%.
Nobody. And why is it that we don't want to hear their opinions?
When we're like the front line of everything. Yes. And I wasn't in the military, but you know what I mean? Right. They are definitely front line.
But military see it overseas, so they know what third world countries look like. They know what tyrannical governments look like. They know what communism looks like.
You know you're answering your own question right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 100%. But that's why. Exactly. All right. Fair enough.
I like it. It's cool.
It's such bullshit. It pisses me off the military because they went off on this thing where we couldn't, like, we are very restricted on what it is that we can post or like, or, they're going to think a certain way. Well, at what point in time are you going to make a thin blue line a hate speech? Are you going to make that image hate speech? So if I posted I posted that 7 years ago, am I labeled a racist?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then law enforcement, why would you not want their opinions voiced?
Yeah.
Okay. Some, but truly, those guys see it on the front lines. They see society every single day. Why is it we're trying to suppress their opinions, but somebody that's never held down a real job,
right,
that's never actually been a contributing member of society, they have carte blanche to say whatever they want.
Or convicted sex offenders who are allowed to have social media and contact your kids. That just blows my mind.
Well, you just got me fired up too, because CHP, like, we were not allowed to display thin blue line flags, but we could display pride flags, right? Like,
makes sense.
I have nothing against any of that. but the double standard there was just mind blowing to me.
Right.
Yeah, I just like, no.
But those are the ones that I want to hear from. I want to hear from cops that are on Skid Row. Hey, what's it like when you let the society run rampant with drug use? What does that actually look like? Because when all these other cities are considering it, maybe their citizens should be able to hear from the people in cities that are already doing it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think Seattle PD would tell you? What do you think Portland PD would tell you about letting that run roughshod?
Dude.
Guess whose opinions we don't get? Any of theirs. So when these cities are kicking it around, and they're saying, no, it'll be this perfect utopia and everybody will be nice to each other. I know, I don't think that's going to work, but who am I, right? Let's talk to the guys that are actually down there.
Yeah.
What they'll tell you is they see horrendous person's crimes. And what they see is like a tortured soul. And it's sad.
Yeah. You brought up great in that other podcast about just being dead inside. It was just everyone there was just, they were just gone. They were not humans anymore. I'm trying to be sympathetic to them, but they were past the point of a person in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
soulless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just crazy.
I don't know how you fix that.
You don't. Not that, at least Skid Row. I think that
I feel like that's a generational fix. Like it's not going to be a 5-year fix. It's 20, 30 years of like focused work on it.
Right.
I don't know.
Are you talking about fixing the society or fixing the person?
The society. Cause the people, like you said, like, I mean, we know that's very, very rare someone pulls himself out of that world. They can have all the help in the world, but they need to want it, and most of them don't.
And that's why there has to be teeth in it. There has to be skin in the game for them. That's where Idaho is a little different. Most of the time, they got some skin in the game before they go in and seek drug court or drug counseling or whatever. They got something hanging that's motivating them to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between there.
I think what helps this area tremendously, and I think it's unique to the entire country, really, at least in my opinion, the fact that we have somewhere to push the criminal element 30 minutes away will forever. No, I'm being serious. The fact that you can go do whatever criminal activity you want a half hour away and avoid the police contacts and going to jail and all this other stuff makes this place so unique. Because I think, you know, like in LA, where am I going to push them to?
Yeah.
El Segundo. You know what I mean? Like they're just going to keep staying in the same thing. They're just going to be like, yeah, whatever. Like you said, it has no teeth. We got teeth here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we'll use them.
Right.
Or you can go 30 minutes away and do whatever you want.
And you talked about that before, Eric. Like, it sounds bad, right? But it's like your job is to push that shit out of your community because your community is the number one focus.
Yeah.
It does sound bad, but ultimately that's where I want to live. So fuck it.
Yeah. No. Well, you try other things, right? You hold people like, but it's about accountability. Idaho still has some accountability. We gripe about our court system all the time.
It's mostly him. He's over here.
That's because I'm in there every freaking week, dude. It drives me crazy sometimes, some of the decisions of individuals. However, we still have accountability here. You're still going to get held accountable here. And if they know that they can just do that 30 minutes away where they're not going to be held accountable, that's not an us issue. The way we police is naturally going to push people over there where they're not going to be held accountable. It's just like a kid that wants a certain teacher or a certain coach. Yeah. Right. They're like, no, I want that. Or people on probation that want a certain PO. If you're a probation officer and they're like, no, I really want that one. Maybe you should check yourself. You know what I mean? Maybe you ought to check.
There were, speaking of kids earlier, though, there was a lot of older guys whose teenagers would start mouthing off. So they'd bring them down and leave them on the corner for a little bit. Yeah. Talk about scared straight, man. Like,
I could only
that was
imagine.
good. So then we would have other cars posted around the corner. So they were watching them, but then the parent would just drive off. You just watch them kind of like,
that would be terrifying as a kid.
Yeah. So, I mean, not younger kids, but yeah, like the 16, 17-year-olds, I thought they were cool. They would totally do that.
Here's where you might end up.
Oh, dude. It was,
no thanks.
We'll get you on here again talking football, dude.
Oh, anytime.
The belief, and I know where you're at playing college and playing quarterback down there and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
it was nuts, dude.
And the lessons learned and all that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good life lessons. Like even going back to when I worked at Outback Steakhouse when I was a young kid and watching people bitch about something and doing nothing to change it. Like that was a factor in us moving here, was the fact that nothing was going to change that we were mad at, you know. And I learned that lesson very young and was lucky enough to pay attention to it.
Yeah. You always tell kids, right? Like, why don't you focus on the things that are within the scope of your control and try to push out those things that are outside the scope of your control. Eventually, those things that are outside the scope of your control, if it is wrecking your quality of life, you don't have an option. You're not going to be able to control those. You can't fix those, right? Then you got to change something about your environment. Right. And I think that's why we end up having so much interest in moving out here.
When you're a product of your environment, so when the people you work with and the people you live around are all in good moods, you're naturally going to be in a better mood.
Yeah.
No one's sitting in 4.5 hours of traffic every day, no matter what job they have. You know what I mean? And everyone's cool and actually spending time with their
Dude,
kids.
you sat in 2 weeks of traffic a year. That would add
Extra,
like
yeah.
6
I would
years
lose my
to
mind.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would add 6
Like enrages me.
Yes.
to
So what are we
traffic.
going to do? Live closer?
take away 6
No,
years.
we're going to do live closer to that trash.
Good point.
No.
You know what I mean? Right. So
No.
that was the trade-off, right? Is like, damn, you know, and we lived in a great area. North Upland was awesome. Dave is familiar with it, but I mean, the freeway therapy, I mean, there were times where it took me a half hour to get from the station to the freeway,
Yeah.
just a half hour alone just to get, and it was not that far.
Yeah, but even
So-
then you're like a merc, dude. Like what's different here is even though I know you don't live in your jurisdiction, the impact that you have
Mhm.
is felt there because there's no walls between our communities
Yeah.
and honestly our agents. Like
Yep.
what you do here has an impact on where your kids are going to grow up.
Mhm.
Like that's still a huge difference. And it would be weird for me to like those guys that live in Idaho but go to Spokane. I don't know. I wouldn't be in it. You
Well,
know,
it's like when guys, and
They're
I'm
probably not.
you're
well,
just- yeah.
like even when I came up here and everyone was like, "Oh man, you know, you can live in Idaho but make more money out in Spokane." And I'm like, if I wanted more money for a liberal city, I would have just stayed in LA. Like,
Right.
what was the point of the move?
Right.
You know, and obviously you got your family out, but I don't subscribe to that. I don't understand that one at all.
Yeah, but and I'm actually glad you brought that up because I've told you there has been some struggles of cops coming from other states and then coming to police here because it's an adjustment here.
Mhm.
And if you're past that point of where you actually want to police, if you've
Yeah.
gotten to a point where your heart's no longer in it and you just don't want to do it and you've burned out, man, it can be a tough transition to Idaho policing. If you're coming here to retire,
Mhm.
man,
No.
this probably ain't it. Like not be a cop. I mean, if you're a lateral, if you're coming up here because you think it's a small town and you won't have to do anything,
Yep.
we aren't that.
Well, and then the flip side of that too is coming from a massive agency where like day shift alone was like 50 guys.
yeah.
Man, you could hide. Man, the old timers slept on the roof,
Yeah.
mouth open, like no vest. They did not care.
Right.
You know what I mean? But here, there's only 6 of us on at a time. If you're
Yeah.
not the dude handling calls, like, or
Yeah.
doing your job or
Yeah.
being proactive, like you are going to stick out and it's going to,
Yes.
we've had guys, I don't want to say their names, but we've had guys even since I've been here that really struggled with that.
Yes.
And we're just a cancer and it didn't work because I think because of the positivity of the department, how happy everyone was when this other person came in and was just trying to draw it down because of money stuff. You know what I mean? And it was just like, dude, you didn't Google it before you got here.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right,
mean? Like
yeah.
that's a you problem. you
Yeah.
know?
yeah,
And
but a lot of it was you because you were humble coming in. You weren't like, oh, I'm a 10-year cop. I already know everything. It was
No.
like blank slate. Hey, how do you guys do it?
Yep.
I know it's different here. Your city's really super safe. So how do I do that and contribute to that? That's that's a mentality issue.
Yeah, I didn't want to, because obviously you say the name, like the name's, you know, world renowned. I can go to China and say LAPD and
Yes.
what is every TV show based off of? By the way,
Right.
the Rookie's fake, by the way. In case you're wondering. The billboard alone, right? So it's like, oh, I got the Rookie. He's got a full head of hair. I'm like, the billboard's even, my wife loves that show. Like,
Yeah.
It makes no sense. But anyway, I was an FTO for 3 years and he's the Rookie. Like, do they do that? I'm like, have I ever said that? And when I come home from work,
No.
yeah, dude, she's like, when's your undercover day? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You don't wear a shirt like Boardman's.
What's wrong with Boardman's
And
shirt,
watch the
dude?
Rookie.
Dang.
I mean, it's better than the puka shells, but
They go together.
I know they do.
Hand in hand. Thank you.
But
Appreciate that.
yeah, no, it was a wild time, but
No, it is an adjustment though. But those guys that are looking at making that jump coming up here for laterals, man, it's an open book. You can talk to guys like Will and several others from different states. We have them from Texas. We've got them from Oregon, Washington, California. You know,
got Nevada now too.
yeah.
Got a Colorado coming,
Yeah,
maybe.
well, no, Colorado. I'm not going to say
Yeah,
the name, but
okay,
yeah, we got Colorado guys too. But it's important to talk to some of them and get some objective that's not a recruiter. I
Yeah.
think that part's important. Somebody can shoot it real.
Yeah.
And I think having a good attitude in the sense of no matter how much time you've done, like you might be in a car with a younger FTO who's been here for 3 years, but has grown up in this kind of
Right.
culture. You know what I mean? And if you're not willing to listen to that, it's not going to go well. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So really you just got to be mentally prepared for what's going to hit you. But it's cool because you do have the knowledge and skills that when you do want to be proactive, like, man, you could really hit the ground running once.
Yes.
Once you clarified it for me, man, like last summer we were, what was it, like 54 self-initiated felonies. You know what I mean? Because it was
wild.
just boom, boom, boom. And just being able to have that freedom and like good story. So I was here. I was with, I think it was first phase. I got my first felony arrest. I'm like, all right, man, where do we get the bail schedule? He was like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude. I'm like, where's the bail schedule? Because like even in Cali, I think murder was $1 million. You know what I mean? So there was some number.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, there is no bail for felonies. I'm
Yeah.
like,
What?
this is incredible. This is so cool. I wrote a 0 there, but because I remember during the COVID, man, there was a guy we caught, a burglar, jumping up. I don't know how the hell he got up there, but he was 5 stories up on this high rise and broke into this old lady's condo, and he had a firearm. prohibited possessor. And during COVID, the bail was zero. It was a book and release on a burglar with a loaded firearm who was a prohibited possessor.
Home
and
invasion.
it was, and it's like, and then, you wonder why the guys come so disgruntled and stuff, because it's like,
why bother?
We became the fire department, man. We'd handle our call, come back. Handle our call,
but why are you going to risk your life for that?
Or your career, man? Like,
right?
Again, how cool is your pension when you're in prison?
No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Your life, like everybody thinks they're going to die in a hail of gunfire and, brass rounds in a big pile. Man, it's not that anymore. You're going to get YouTube shamed. There's going to be people at your house. Your department's going to disown you. Like, that's more likely than the hail of gunfire.
And you brought that up in a previous podcast, which I loved, where you were like, like you said, I think the fear of actually being killed at work by gunfire is very minimal to me. I mean, obviously you think about it and that's what your tactics are for, but that's what experience is. But at the same time, if you're at the stoplight, a government niter, and some guy just decides to go and turn and shoot you, like that's it.
I can't do anything.
Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just your time, but you try to mitigate that risk as much as you can through training experience and obviously your tactics and everything else involved. But the fact that, again, that guy with the knife in the middle of the street, like, you're screwed, dude. Like, that's a
bad call.
Yeah, dude. And you're just that radio call that you just happen to be free while the other old timers are sleeping on the roof.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I just didn't want to risk that for my family. And I hope anyone at a bigger liberal city understands that. I bet they know exactly what I'm talking about. But, and I'm sure the old school LAPD guys are just rolling over in their grave, which sucks. But
they all live up here now.
Oh, so. I know they do.
Yeah.
I know they
Number
do.
one retirement for law enforcement up here.
Yeah, I know they do. But
that's cool.
It's, there's no better place, in my opinion. I couldn't recommend it higher. It's coming from a guy who came from one of the biggest agencies in the country, and just welcoming them with, you guys welcome me with open arms, but at the same time too, is like, hey, you got to get your shit done, which I was actually happy to show, because you haven't had to prove something in a long time because you weren't doing anything proactive. You weren't doing anything cop related. You were just like, we used to call it the parade, man. If you got a code 3 call that wasn't cop related, like a backup or a help call, man, you're going 15 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just call it parade speed. I'm not, it was, anyway.
What do you say? Like, does anyone ever give you crap? Like, what do you say to the people that are like, you're coming from California, like, don't bring your crap here? Like, ever got any of that?
I think because anyone who knows me knows I'm a cop, and I think there's a lot of political refugees that kind of like you were. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, we came here with the intention of making it better and voting the same way and keeping it not what we just came from. Why the hell would I vote to make it where I just came from?
Yeah.
Again, you could have just made more money staying there. You know what I mean? So what? I mean, my wife got honked out a lot with her California plates for a long time. It was pretty funny. But I told my parents they moved up here, I'm like, I'd rather have you get a ticket for not for not having plates.
Yes.
And just tell them that you're my son, or that you're my parents.
No plates.
Well, no, man, like you're gonna get your car keyed, which is funny because down there, if you had a Trump flag, like your tires are slashed, windows are busted out, dude. It's just a disaster. But
I actually get that. I had a UC car once that was a BMW, and I put Washington plates on it. I got flipped off like 6 times an afternoon downtown. I was probably driving like an idiot a couple times too, but definitely.
Like, I get that comment a lot on our YouTube stuff and podcasts. Like, don't California my Idaho. And I'm like, I used to be nice. Now I'm just like, screw, you know what? I've heard enough of that shit. Like, that's just dumb.
As a guy coming from down there, I understand it's obviously much more liberal than it was in people who grew up here. I can't argue that fact. But if you think we're anywhere close by any means to where I came from, we are light years from that.
Well, and I guess because I grew up in Spokane, right? So maybe I'm part of that too. But I grew up 30 minutes from here where we push all of our shit now. And my mom was a cop in Spokane. And then I moved here from Miami area. So I'll say this, and this, as my son would say, I'm not glazing the two of you, right? But I challenge anybody that's going to talk shit about people from coming from California up here. You two are contributing more to keeping our community the way that it is now than most of those people that would talk shit in a comment about people moving from California. So if you're going to move here from there, man, jump into the community and contribute. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a badass place to live. People come up here and visited, the ones that just came up from Maryland, right? Said it was awesome. Everybody was super nice, super helpful, held doors for them. It's just a different culture. It's a 20-year throwback here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So quit talking your shit, right? Yeah. How about you keep contributing to why this place is different?
Right.
Or if it's that bad because there's more people here, sorry guys, the secret's out. It's safe. People like to live here. Bounce. You know what I mean? Because it's not the people that are moving here that are changing the culture here.
Take home cars and park them in the driveway.
Yeah,
blows my mind.
It blows my mind. I see that a lot. I'm like,
oh my God. About
it. Man, it was just insane. I mean, and even just seeing kids on bikes.
Yeah.
No, like, again, the most basic stuff that, our parents had, or at least my parents did down in California. And I kind of grew up that way where you just don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Right. And you have that here. Like you said, it's a throwback 20 years, It's a great feeling. Great feeling.
We don't, and that's where most of our Autobergs are unlocked cars. Look, still recommend you lock.
And put your gun in your house.
Yes,
Jesus.
I know, and that's most of what we get. But that's probably our biggest when we get like runs on crime. That's really kind of what we get is unlocked cars.
Right.
Kids call it car hopping. Courts call it burglary, dumbasses.
And you won't go to jail.
Yeah, don't do that. It's
Don't
just
pass
foolish.
go.
Yeah, seriously. Car hopping is literally a felony. Like it's dumb. Straight up, lock your cars. But when we're still in a community where people are like, oh, I don't have to. I'm not that worried about it, just because we're pretty blessed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just have the support of our community to be able to do that, which is pretty sweet. So honestly, that was a big part of bringing you on, because I want you to be able to talk straight to those people that are looking at making that jump, you know, because it is a lot and change is hard.
Yeah. I mean, the only constant is change, really. So change is going to hit you regardless. So you might as well be in front of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you just got to, again, with the finances, is just really be prepared and understand that you don't know what that next big transaction is or that next big move, or, you know what I mean? Because again, 18 months before I moved, I wasn't going to leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was FTO making a bunch of money, about to start Vice. Man, I ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean?
You had
Living
the
life.
freedom to do it because you'd prepared.
Right. And my grandfather used to have a saying, you know, it's funny, the harder I work, the luckier I got. You know what I mean? And really you're just working on yourself with this stuff, and you're working on your family.
Right.
And then you're paying yourself first instead of paying it to Chevy or, you know, whoever.
Right.
But yeah, I couldn't recommend this area more. I can't thank the citizens enough. I think it's just so cool the way they interact with us and walk. Like, I got into use of force here. I don't want to get too specific, but then these two older females came up to us after. I didn't know what was going to happen. They're like, "Great effing job, boys." Dude, what the? Where are we?
This is awesome.
It's incredible.
You know they were both packing too, so if shit got bad for you,
yeah.
like those ladies would have had your back, dude.
I have had that happen here.
I believe it.
Somebody stopped on the side of the road where there's three of us. Dumb on my not great tactics. I was a young cop.
Yeah.
Dude jumps out. He goes, "You two sit right there. I'm armed." And I was like, "Yeah." I get done. I didn't even get his name. He goes, "All right, you good? See you later," and drives off. And I was like, "It's a little different here."
Retired cop, guaranteed.
100%.
Probably.
Guaranteed.
He'd been daydreaming about that moment for a long
Yeah,
time.
can't say I haven't either. I'm
Even
guilty
like,
of
we did have a major incident. I don't want to get too specific again, but major incident in a parking lot. And the fact that the citizens, you know, when we tell them like, "Hey, I got to rope this off. Your car is going to be, you know, out of commission for a while." Yeah, cool. I'll go get margaritas. They're not kicking anything, trying to get on World Star.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had a guy in Skid Row, man. We had a homicide, and we ended up putting 3 rows of tape, like a effing WWE ring, right? Because people were just ducking it, thinking it didn't apply to them.
Yeah. And
And I'm standing there, and one dude comes up with the blind stick. I don't know the exact term. And I'm like, "Hey, man, turn around." Looks at me, closes it, and walks away.
Oh.
He was trying to fake blind.
All right.
So
Wow.
that was cool about being the FTO, though, because I'm like, "All right, you're going to stand out here." You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I'm sitting in the car. I'm
Hey, good effort though, bro. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Oh my
respect.
Lord, dude.
Hey, game, respect,
Oh.
game. Dude.
There were some fun stories, but I had a guy jump 19 stories and live. So that was, you want to talk about seeing a zombie?
what?
Yeah. So I had a rookie with me. So he was, I want to say it was like 2-3 weeks in. He'd never seen a dead body, and I'm like, "Oh, we got a jumper from 19 stories." I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be a good one." And what's cool about that too is that they wrote everything. You know what I mean? So I'm like, "I don't have to do the report." You're almost like a soccer mom. You're just driving them to calls.
Yeah.
Really, like, just don't shoot anyone and don't do anything illegal, man. It's great, you know. So they get this call, man. We're looking at the busted window. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be awesome." So we walk up, and he's like, we had tarps that we'd have to cover people with. Think of like a softball tournament, those pitch tents,
Yeah.
right? It's so dumb. Anyway, so he's like, "Oh, sir, do we need to call the fire department?" I'm like, "You know what? Like, on an obvious death, it depends, but we'll check it out." I'm fully expecting this dude to be completely dismembered. Right?
Yeah.
So we get there, and I'm walking up, and this dude, I've never been closer to crapping my pants in my entire life. He sits up like this. I'm like, "Oh god, I got this is what I'm talking about right now." It was insane, dude. Right? So I'm like, "Oh, you might want to call the fire department out here." Like,
Yeah.
you can cancel the tarp. We don't need it.
Yeah.
He ended up dying later, but yeah, his leg bent like down this way, and then his knee went to the right, and then his ankle went up like this.
That's
And he
impressive.
had I think 8 ribs sticking out, and just had all his teeth though, which was weird. That
That's,
made no
super
sense.
weird.
that's
The fact
very
someone had all their
impressive.
teeth in Skid Row was probably the most impressive
Yeah.
part. But yeah, I got stories for
Probably
days.
didn't feel a thing. He was high on fentanyl,
Oh,
right?
dude. It was weird. You talk about fentanyl, man. It was so weird because even before I got up here, like it still hadn't really hit LA, at least in Skid Row anyway. Maybe they were offloading all their extra meth or whatever, but
Yeah.
crack was huge. Like I
Right.
got up here and no one's seen crack. And I'm like, man, that's all we dealt with down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but fentanyl stuff's super dangerous, man. I know you had a whole podcast on it, but that is
Yeah, Eric's-
insane to me
Eric's passionate
how
about that.
scary it is. Oh, I know he is. I know.
Oh, he had to sit through my
Oh,
briefings.
dude. We had some good
every
briefings
day.
though. We put people on trial. Like, yeah.
It was hilarious because we were on minimums all summer long.
We had one guy. It wasn't minimum. It was me on
Yes.
4th of July
That's
week.
true.
Wow.
But it's him and 2 brand new guys, both under year cops, which you can imagine. This is exactly how he is all the time. Okay. So he messes with the new guys. Like he brings a little LAPD mentality when he's messing with new guys. It's hilarious all the time. But yeah, they'd have court. So we'd have mock courtroom. Like walk in, all rise, and I'd be the
Good
judge,
practice.
prosecutor, and defense attorney.
I
And
mean, good practice, right?
yeah, but both those dudes came back and they're like, actually, we're glad because
Yeah.
we'd been through all that before. It's
Yeah.
like you'd seen it before. And that is one thing with Idaho, and I never brought it up in other ones. If you guys are coming up from somewhere else, man, you'll testify here.
Yeah.
You'll
Oh,
go to court.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's
With a certain
good.
prosecutor
Yep.
or a defense attorney. But no, and that's what I missed about LAPD really was like the pageantry, the history. Like LA owns the patent on police uniforms. That's why there's no patch. You know what I mean? So I thought always, and like if you look at old pictures from like the 40s, the uniform's exactly the same.
Right.
And there's a reason like, oh, the rookies wear the tie and the tie bar, and usually you don't get it taken off till you're in your first use of force. You know what I mean? So there was just this way you had to build kind of your reputation.
Yeah.
But it was funny because like you're talking about with court or jury trials, you know what I mean, in briefing, but in roll call in the morning, all the rookies sit up front and we make them stand up and recite policy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of them are like, man, I hate doing this, da, da, da. And an old timer in the back, after screaming at the sergeant for something. Like,
Sounds right.
Oh, dude, I can't even repeat some of the stuff that was said in there. It's so incredible. He'd be like, dude, if you can do this in front of a bunch of a-hole cops in here, how easy is it going to be on the stand? You know what I mean? So there was a method to the madness for it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the part I missed. Like you couldn't talk as a rookie, which as you could tell was extremely difficult for me. Like if you said stupid stuff in roll call, like they would make the rookies go and stand and face the wall. So like some sergeant lieutenant would come in and you have like 3 or 4 guys just at attention at the wall, like just little stuff, man.
Yeah.
That, you know, I wouldn't say it was hazing per se, but it was like, hey, you got to learn your place and earn your thing. And one thing I used to tell rookies was the one thing all of us have in common, every cop listening, we were all brand new ones.
Yeah.
Every single guy was brand new, and you got to kind of work your way through and, you know, do what you can to be safe. Cause at least for me, I know report writing is important, but there's literally paperwork to fix paperwork screw ups.
Yeah.
There is no paperwork for, you know,
A bad rapid decision.
Yes. And
Yeah.
being done, you know what I mean? So taking that time, understanding what you have. And if you don't know, let them go. You know, I had that with you the other day where I remember I talked to you about a guy I thought I could arrest it, but I wasn't sure. And you ended up confirming to me that I could have.
Mhm.
But in my mind, and again, if I'm getting separated right away after a critical incident, I'm like, well, I thought I had this. I don't know. Because the worst answer to having police work everywhere is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't care what they're asking you. A sergeant on your days off, whatever it is, you don't want that. So just getting that experience and that repetition, which here in terms of violent radio calls, we don't really have that because it's a great community, but getting that experience that I was able to bring, you know what I mean, of not flipping out when there's a bunch of blood and there's not.
That's super valuable though,
Yeah.
because we just don't have them as frequently.
Mhm.
You know, we get those, honestly, those critical incidents, what, 8 to 10 a year?
If that.
maybe? Where it's like
Yeah.
where it's a good one, you know,
Yeah.
where everybody, and you just, how do you get that in the training program? We try to expose new guys to as much as we can, but we just don't have the frequency. So much of it's based on like, I don't mind stress. I know there's some guys that come to my briefing stressed out because they know I'm going to put them on the spot and be like, hey, what case law is this? He just jokes and lists
Yeah,
off a couple of UFC fighters.
But you know what? I would show that I was listening and paying attention because when you'd see it out in the field, you know what I mean? I
Oh.
was doing it correctly. Not just me, but
Yeah.
the guys who
Oh,
listen to you pick it up. Like, yeah, I can't recite, you know,
And I tell you guys, I don't
Willie
need
Mays, be very Bonds. I don't know that. You know what I mean? Like,
rest in peace, bud.
yeah. Oh, yeah. He just
Yeah.
went out. Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
right.
But no, there's some truth to that though, because I always say, look, you guys don't got to be able to extract the name. Just tell me what's up. Tell me you
Yeah.
know what's up, because we are blunt instruments. We're street cops. Okay, I don't need you to be a lawyer, but just be able to tell me. That way, you can confidently apply that particular portion of the case law, so you don't get hurt.
Yeah.
So you're confident in detaining somebody right away. You're confident in controlling the movements of a passenger, whatever that is.
Huge.
Like
Yes.
a big thing too was extension of stops here, which is huge. Man, in LA, like, oh, you speak Spanish? We're waiting 30 minutes to get another cop to come
Right.
translate this. You know what I mean? So
Because it gets litigated here.
yeah, and it makes sense. You know what I mean? But having to learn that clock and asking consensual questions a different way than you would have spent, man, turn around. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And getting that verbiage and kind of having to relearn. So one thing for laterals, I think, is you have to have that kind of humble mentality because in a way we're harder to teach than brand new guys
Yes.
because we've been doing it for a long time and most of us have been pretty successful. So for us to have to like unlearn some stuff, but weave it in with the stuff you've learned is definitely a tight, rope to walk.
That's fun though, man. That's where I take the most pride. Going
Yeah.
back and watching your videos or watching, I was like, look at him go.
Yeah.
Old dog, new tricks.
Well, I mean, I get
Guys
frustrated.
teaching the new guy.
We've heard every excuse in the book at this point, and like you are much better. He's much better at like the finesse and I'm going to talk you through it. It's like
That's what he does around here
dude,
too.
It's like an effing romance
He's
novel with
no-
this dude, right? It's just urinating him, and I'm like,
quite.
all right, I don't
Yeah, and he's getting
I
frustrated. He's
literally
like,
walk up, I'm like, is this your drugs? And they
Yes.
admit to it.
yes.
But in a way, it kind of works in court because what's his defense when he's been Mirandized? I'm like, is this yours? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Go back to whatever.
romanticize him the whole time. I'm just trying to get his source.
This is so good.
I'm
Yeah.
not mad at you, man. But
Yeah.
no, you
No,
really,
it's fun.
yeah, it's a fun time, man. You get that good group, and I think what's cool too, especially about young guys, man. If you're looking to move up here as a young guy and start here, man, is that energy feeds because I've been doing this for a while. You're talking about that burnout. Really, before I started finding my passion for the sex offenders, I wouldn't say burned out, but it was definitely. It kind of wears on you, gets mundane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I already did this call. Okay, this lady's calling because someone spit on their lawn. You know what I mean? Just shenanigans. But having that young energy of guys trying to hustle and make their name and stuff, it makes you feed into it. So, but yeah, if you've never been a cop and you're trying to be a cop up here too, which we obviously have many new hires
Right.
that are coming in, it's a great place to learn and do that because you're being on the offense really with the proactive stuff,
Yeah.
as opposed to all right, well, this is how you don't get fired, all right, and this is how we don't do this, and you know what I mean. Instead of this is how we do stuff, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
but I've heard you be positive in explaining to guys like why it works.
Yeah.
Like there was one in particular, probably the same one you were talking about before, that said, I'm not going to chase meth pipes.
Yeah.
And I've heard you say, okay, well, you move to a community where that's what you do because that keeps them from committing all the other crimes that they're likely to commit based on their meth use.
Right.
The burgs and malinjuries. Like that's what we do here sometimes because we don't have those major crimes because we've run them all out.
Right. And that goes back to almost being so conservative that it's liberal, where if you end up finding that meth pipe, man, you had to, besides plain view, like you had to work to get that. So what's cool is because we have teeth, like your firewall is up front. But once we can actually break it and get through it and serenade it or whatever you want to call it, you know what I mean? Like once you break through that though, man, like now it's like you have no defense because your defense was on the front line there. So
Right.
it's, and understanding that and navigating it is pretty tough, but
So we spend so much time educating on that.
Yeah.
So if you're coming in and you're a lateral and you got a skill set, man, we got a role here. You just come in humble, learn it the Idaho way, and then you'll find that role. Because like I said, those guys coming from places where they've had those hot calls and responded and have all that tactical. Dude, we absolutely want that. You just got to learn how to police it in Idaho first.
it's legit, man.
I'm really thankful that there's dudes like you out in the community doing what you do, by the way. And I just reap the rewards of it living here. So thank you.
Like I said, bro, you're contributing to that shit too.
In another way,
You're
right?
helping
Yeah,
cops
sure.
get here.
No.
You know what I mean? That's a big deal.
Recruiting like a mofo.
Yeah,
right?
dude,
Yeah.
it works,
Yes.
man.
Oh,
It
we've
works.
got quite a, which is badass though, dude, because that's what you want.
You just got to figure out how to get paid from the sheriff's department and the PD. That's my next goal.
You saw our building, right? It's going to be well.
Yeah.
It's not been a good year. we got hacked by Russia.
Oh, what's the fiscal year starting like July or
Yeah,
something?
something like that.
Hit them up then.
It has been a weird year.
I've heard a rumor guys get days off though if they contribute to good applicants. So
Yeah.
just
Okay.
keep that up.
We got you.
I might know a guy.
Yeah.
Again, you can find me nowhere, so I will not be getting those days off.
So you start a financial business or something, dude. That was pretty legit.
I see a legit side hustle here in your future.
You know what? I've thought of it, man. But honestly, it's kind of like quitting smoking or getting in shape or whatever. Unless you want to do this, I could give you all the information in the world because again, it's not difficult. It's and two things that I use also. I forgot to mention these: Dave Ramsey investment calculator and Dave Ramsey mortgage payoff calculator. Their websites, man, you can screw with the numbers so much. So we were talking about looking at amortization schedules. Man, I'll be up at 11:30 at night because my 9-month-old just cannot sleep, and I hope he sees this in a couple of years and knows how irritated I was.
He has
But
your energy.
Ah,
That's
dude.
what it is. Bro.
my house is anarchy.
that. I
My
feel
house
that.
is anarchy, dude. It's
Oh, I
anarchy.
get it.
Dude. But you can play in there and be like, all right, well, if I cut another $100 out of BS and I put an extra 100 towards the house, you see what I mean? And it shows you,
Yeah.
it breaks it down how much shorter and how much you save. And when I looked at the double payment thing and it talked about how many months shorter, not years, but months, it was like 194 payments.
That's insane.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, dude, how do I not like, yeah, I want to get some other stuff, but man, do the overtime, right? Like, hey, I want to buy a table saw. If you have money in your savings account, you're just going to go buy it. But when you look at how much other crap you spent, and then you're like, oh, and then I don't have this, and then, oh yeah, and then, oh man, the kid gets sick. And then it's always something, you know, but
Yeah.
Just come on my shift for a shift. You'll get 4 hours of overtime.
Oh my God. No, that's why I won't be an FTO anymore. I'm done with that, dude. I cannot.
Which is too bad. I know. I totally get why.
And you know why? Because I genuinely like teaching the kids that want to be taught. I really do. Like he's seen it. I love trying to pass that on because so many people were influential early in my career. Just guys with, I mean, you want to talk about wealth and knowledge, man. Like just some incredible cops that really took the time to make sure I was learning what I was doing and make sure I was safe and just being awesome. But being when they ask things about, like those critical incidents that we don't really get a lot of, that's something I'm able to pass on that not everyone can, because everyone's not going to 4 shootings a day and 7 stabbings and you know what I mean? Just seeing the people jumping off a building and whatever. But I have some other ones too, but
we're gonna have to have you come back and just tell war stories from LA, dude.
Oh yeah,
dude, I'm so grateful to be on this. Like I've always wanted to do something like this.
That's freaking rad.
Yeah, no, I'm legit. Like,
when earlier you were like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk for long enough. We're at like an hour and 36 minutes. Does that blow your mind, right?
Then I'm gonna be the one to kill it because I have to go to a dance recital.
My wife's just happy I'm not home.
You better get going, bro. All right, we'll call it. Will, thank you.
Thank you.
Great to get to know you too, Eric. Absolutely. Of course, always a pleasure. All right, we'll call it at that. Thank you, guys. Catch you next time.